During my surgery, my mother whispered to the doctor why she really wanted me gone. I heard it all. If you're just tuning in, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update on this story. And don't forget to let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. The fluorescent lights above the operating table buzzed with an electric hum that seemed to vibrate through her bones. 23-year-old Emma Parkinson lay motionless, her dark skin pale against the sterile white sheets, as the anesthesia pulled her toward unconsciousness. But something was wrong, terribly wrong. While her body remained paralyzed, her mind clung to awareness like a drowning person grasping for air. Dr. Carl Mason adjusted his surgical mask, his experienced hands steady as he prepared for what should have been a routine appendectomy. The morning had started like any other in the hospital's main surgical suite, with the familiar sounds of monitors beeping and ventilators humming their mechanical lullabies. "Patient appears to be under," the anesthesiologist, Dr. Sarah Kim, announced, checking her monitors one final time. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who had performed this procedure thousands of times before. But Emma could hear everything. Every word, every footstep, every whispered conversation that shouldn't have reached her ears. The anesthetic had failed to fully claim her consciousness, leaving her trapped in a body that refused to respond while her mind remained horrifyingly alert. As Dr. Mason made his first incision, Emma felt the sharp bite of the scalpel against her skin. She wanted to scream, wanted to alert them that she was awake, but her vocal cords remained frozen. Panic flooded through her as she realized the nightmare she was trapped in. Then she heard her mother's voice, low and urgent, speaking to someone near the doorway. The words that followed would shatter everything Emma thought she knew about the woman who had raised her, revealing a secret that had been festering for over 2 decades. "Doctor, I need to speak with you privately," Diane Parkinson whispered, her voice trembling with barely contained emotion. Her perfectly manicured fingers clutched a worn leather purse as she approached Dr. Mason's colleague, Dr. Rebecca Torres, who had stepped away from the main surgical team. Emma's heart raced as she strained to hear the conversation unfolding just feet from her paralyzed form. The steady beep of her heart monitor betrayed her elevated pulse, but the medical team attributed it to normal surgical stress. "Mrs. Parkinson, perhaps we should discuss this after the procedure," Dr. Torres suggested diplomatically, her Puerto Rican accent soft but firm. She had seen anxious family members before, but something in Diane's demeanor set off alarm bells in her experienced mind. "No, you don't understand," Diane hissed, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I've been waiting 23 years for this moment. That girl on the table, she's not my daughter." "Not really." The words hit Emma like physical blows. Her mother, the woman who had fed her, clothed her, and claimed to love her, was revealing a truth that made Emma's world crumble around her. The monitors continued their steady rhythm, but inside, Emma's consciousness screamed in disbelief. Dr. Torres frowned, her dark eyes narrowing with concern. "Mrs. Parkinson, I think you're experiencing some pre-surgical anxiety. This is completely normal. Listen to me." Diane's voice rose slightly before she caught herself, glancing nervously at the surgical team. 23 years ago, my real daughter died in a car accident. I was driving. I was drunk. And I replaced her with this one." The revelation hung in the air like poison gas, seeping into every corner of Emma's consciousness and changing everything she had ever believed about her life. Dr. Torres guided Diane to a quiet corner of the observation area, her professional demeanor masking the shock she felt at the woman's confession. As a pediatric surgeon who had transitioned to general surgery, she had heard many family secrets, but this was beyond anything in her experience. "Tell me what happened," Dr. Torres said quietly, her voice gentle but probing. She needed to understand if this woman was having a psychological break or if there was truth to her disturbing claim. Diane's hands shook as she clutched her purse tighter. "It was December 15th, 23 years ago. My daughter Amelia was 3 years old. We were driving home from my sister's house after a Christmas party. I had been drinking, more than I should have." Emma's mind reeled as she processed this information. December 15th was indeed her earliest memory date, but she had always been told it was when they moved to a new neighborhood after her father left them. "The roads were icy," Diane continued, tears streaming down her face. "I lost control of the car. We hit a tree. Amelia was thrown from the vehicle. She died instantly." Her voice broke on the last words, 23 years of guilt finally finding release. Dr. Torres glanced toward the surgical table where Emma lay, her professional instincts warring with her human curiosity. And Emma? I found her wandering on the highway about a mile from the accident. She was hurt, bleeding, confused. She kept crying for her mama, but there was no one around. No abandoned cars, no reports of missing children. It was like she had appeared from nowhere. The heart monitor's beeping increased slightly, reflecting Emma's internal turmoil as she heard the truth about her origins. She wasn't Diane's daughter. She was a lost child who had been claimed by a grieving mother desperate to replace what she had lost. I should have called the police, Diane whispered, her voice hollow with shame. I should have reported finding her, should have tried to find her real family. But I was drunk, scared, and devastated. My baby was dead because of my choices, and here was another little girl who needed help. Dr. Torres felt her stomach tighten as the implications of Diane's confession became clear. You took her home? I told everyone we had moved away after my husband left. I changed our names, got new identification through someone my cousin knew who worked in vital records. Emma became my daughter, and I tried to love her the way I had loved Amelia. On the surgical table, Dr. Mason continued his work, unaware of the bombshell revelation occurring just meters away. He noted that the patient's vitals showed signs of stress but attributed it to the normal physiological response to surgery. But you couldn't, Dr. Torres stated, reading between the lines of Diane's confession. Diane's shoulders shook with suppressed sobs. Every time I looked at her, I saw my failure. I saw the child I had killed through my selfishness. Emma tried so hard to please me, to earn my love, but all I could feel was guilt and resentment. She was a constant reminder of the worst night of my life. Emma's consciousness recoiled from the pain of this revelation. Every birthday where her mother seemed distant, every achievement that went uncelebrated, every moment when she felt like she wasn't quite good enough, it all made horrifying sense now. She's been asking questions lately, Diane continued, about her childhood, about why we don't have any family photos from before she was 3. I think she's starting to remember things. The surgical light seemed to dim as Emma realized that her scattered childhood memories, fragments of different faces, different voices, different rooms, weren't dreams at all. Dr. Torres struggled to maintain her professional composure as Diane's story unfolded. Mrs. Parkinson, if what you're telling me is true, then Emma has a right to know who she really is. There might be family out there who have been searching for her all these years. That's exactly what I'm afraid of, Diane admitted, her voice hardening with determination. She's been talking about doing one of those DNA tests, about finding her real family. She doesn't remember much, but enough to make her curious. On the table, Emma's mind raced with newfound clarity. She had been having dreams lately, memories of a woman with kind eyes who sang lullabies in a different voice than her mother's, of a man who called her Little Star, in a language she couldn't quite place. Dr. Mason paused in his work, frowning at the monitor readings. Her heart rate is elevated. Everything okay back there? Just routine monitoring, Dr. Torres called back, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. She turned back to Diane. What exactly are you asking me to do? Diane's eyes glittered with desperate resolve. I need you to make sure she doesn't wake up from this surgery. Make it look like a complication. I can't lose her to some family that gave up looking for her years ago. The words hit Dr. Torres like a physical blow. She was being asked to commit murder to cover up a decades-old kidnapping. The woman standing before her had stolen a child and was now asking her to kill that same child to protect her secret. Mrs. Parkinson, I think you need to step outside and collect yourself, Dr. Torres said firmly. What you're suggesting is... I'm not suggesting anything, Diane interrupted. I'm telling you what needs to happen. Unless you want me to tell everyone about your little problem with the prescription medications. Emma's paralyzed body couldn't react, but her mind exploded with shock and terror. Her mother, the woman she had spent her entire life trying to please, was not only revealing that she had kidnapped her, but was now trying to have her killed. Dr. Torres took a step back, her face paling. I don't know what you think you know about me, but... I know about the Percocet, Diane said quietly, her voice taking on a calculating tone. I know about the Xanax you've been taking from the supply closet. I work in medical records, Rebecca. I see everything that comes through this hospital, including the discrepancies in controlled substance inventories. The color drained from Dr. Torres's face. Her addiction had started innocently enough. A back injury that led to prescription pain medication, which led to dependence when the prescription ran out. She had been careful, taking only small amounts from different departments, but apparently not careful enough. My daughter can't wake up from this surgery, Diane continued, pressing her advantage. If she does, my life is over. And if my life is over, I have nothing left to lose. That means your little secret becomes everyone's business. Dr. Torres glanced toward the surgical table where Emma lay helpless. The young woman had no idea that her life hung in the balance between a desperate mother's blackmail and a doctor's career-ending addiction. I have a family, Dr. Torres whispered. Children who depend on me. I can't. Then you understand exactly why I'm doing this, Diane replied coldly. We both have too much to lose. The difference is, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect what's mine. The monitors continued their steady beeping. The only sound in the room that suggested life continued despite the death sentence being discussed just feet away. Dr. Torres felt the walls closing in around her as Diane's threat hung heavy in the air. Her hands trembled slightly as she considered her options. She could expose Diane's confession about kidnapping Emma, but that would inevitably lead to questions about why Diane felt confident enough to blackmail her in the first place. You have 5 minutes to decide, Diane said, checking her watch with cold precision. After that, I start making phone calls about missing medications and forged prescription records. Emma's consciousness screamed in helpless rage as she listened to her fate being decided by two women who held her life in their hands. The anesthesia that was supposed to protect her from pain had instead trapped her in a waking nightmare where she could only listen as her murder was planned. Dr. Torres looked toward the surgical team, where Dr. Mason continued his work with practiced efficiency. She thought about her own children, 8-year-old Maria and 6-year-old Carlos, who would be devastated if their mother's career and reputation were destroyed by her addiction. There has to be another way, Dr. Torres whispered desperately. What if I helped you disappear? Start over somewhere else. You could take Emma in. She'll never stop looking for her real family now, Diane interrupted. She's already started asking too many questions. The only way this ends is if she's not around to ask them anymore. The heart monitor's beeping increased again as Emma's terror reached new heights. She tried desperately to move, to make any sound that would alert the surgical team to her consciousness, but her body remained completely unresponsive. Dr. Mason glanced at the monitors with mild concern. Her vitals are fluctuating more than I'd like. Sarah, can you check her anesthesia levels? Dr. Kim nodded and began adjusting her equipment, unknowingly holding Emma's only hope for survival in her capable hands. Dr. Sarah Kim frowned as she reviewed her monitors and checked Emma's responses. Something wasn't right. The patient's brain activity suggested a level of consciousness that shouldn't exist given the amount of anesthesia she had administered. That's unusual, she murmured, adjusting her equipment and running additional tests. Her Korean heritage had instilled in her a meticulous attention to detail that had served her well throughout her medical career. Diane watched nervously as Dr. Kim worked, realizing that her window of opportunity might be closing. Is there a problem? Just routine monitoring, Dr. Kim replied automatically, but her concern was growing. The patient's neurological responses suggested awareness despite being under general anesthesia, a rare but serious condition known as anesthesia awareness. Emma felt a surge of hope as she sensed Dr. Kim's attention. If anyone could discover her consciousness, it would be the anesthesiologist. She tried to focus all her mental energy on creating some detectable response, some sign that she was aware and in danger. Dr. Torres stepped closer to Diane, her voice barely audible. Even if I wanted to help you, I couldn't do anything with Dr. Kim monitoring everything so closely. She's one of the best anesthesiologists in the state. Then find a way to distract her, Diane hissed. Or I start making those phone calls right now. The surgical suite suddenly felt charged with tension as multiple crises converged. Dr. Mason continued his work on Emma's appendix, unaware that his colleagues were embroiled in a life-and-death struggle of conscience and blackmail. Dr. Kim's equipment beeped with an alert. I'm seeing some irregular patterns here. The patient may be experiencing awareness under anesthesia. I need to adjust her medication immediately. No, Diane said sharply, then caught herself as all eyes turned toward her. I mean, is that dangerous? Should we be worried? Dr. Kim looked at her strangely. It's extremely rare and we have protocols to address it. The patient's comfort and safety are our primary concerns. Dr. Kim's discovery sent a chill through Diane's body. If Emma was conscious, she had heard everything. The confession about the kidnapping, the blackmail attempt, and the plan to end her life. The carefully constructed lie that had held for 23 years was crumbling in real time. I need everyone to step back, Dr. Kim announced, increasing the anesthesia dosage and adding additional monitoring equipment. If the patient is aware, we need to ensure her complete comfort and unconsciousness before proceeding. Emma felt the additional medication beginning to pull at the edges of her consciousness, but the revelation had given her strength. She focused every ounce of her will on staying aware, on hearing what would happen next. Dr. Torres saw her chance and moved closer to Diane. It's over. If she's conscious, she knows everything. You need to leave now and think about what you're going to do. I know exactly what I'm going to do, Diane replied with chilling calm. I'm going to wait until she's unconscious again, and then you're going to make sure she never wakes up. But Dr. Torres had reached her breaking point. The combination of Diane's confession, the blackmail attempt, and the realization that an innocent young woman lay helpless on the operating table finally broke through her fear. Dr. Mason, she called out, her voice carrying across the surgical suite. I need to speak with you immediately. There's been a development that affects the patient's safety. Diane's eyes widened with shock and rage. What are you doing? The right thing, Dr. Torres replied firmly. Something I should have done the moment you opened your mouth. Dr. Mason looked up from his work, his experienced eye immediately recognizing the urgency in his colleague's voice. Can it wait until we've completed the procedure? No, Dr. Torres said, moving toward the surgical table. It absolutely cannot wait. Dr. Mason set down his instruments and stepped away from the table, his attention fully focused on Dr. Torres. The surgical suite fell silent except for the steady beeping of monitors and the whisper of the ventilator. What's going on, Rebecca? He asked quietly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had managed countless surgical crises over his career. Dr. Torres took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would change everything for everyone in the room. The patient's mother just confessed to me that Emma is not her biological daughter. She claims to have found her as a child and has been raising her under false pretenses for 23 years. The words hung in the air like an explosive charge. Dr. Mason's face went from confusion to shock to professional concern in the span of seconds. That's not all, Dr. Torres continued, her voice gaining strength. She's been trying to blackmail me into ensuring that Emma doesn't survive this surgery. Diane lunged forward, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking completely. You have no idea what you've just done. You've destroyed everything. I've saved a life, Dr. Torres replied firmly. Which is what we're supposed to do in here. Dr. Kim looked up from her monitors, her own shock evident. If the patient has been conscious during this conversation, she's heard all of this. The psychological trauma alone could be devastating. Dr. Mason's expression hardened as he processed the implications. In 30 years of surgery, he had never encountered anything like this situation. Security, he called through the intercom system. I need security in or 7 immediately. Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her as she realized that help was finally coming. But the relief was tinged with the devastating knowledge of who she really was, or rather who she wasn't. Security officers entered the surgical suite within minutes, their presence transforming the sterile medical environment into something resembling a crime scene. Diane found herself surrounded, her 23-year secret finally exposed to the harsh light of justice. Mrs. Parkinson, you need to come with us, the lead security officer said firmly but professionally. The police are on their way. This is all a misunderstanding, Diane protested, but her voice lacked conviction. The weight of her confession and the failed blackmail attempt had left her with no credible defense. Dr. Mason had made the difficult decision to pause the surgery until they could determine Emma's level of consciousness and provide appropriate psychological support. Sarah, I need you to keep her stable but begin the process of bringing her back to consciousness. She has a right to know what's happening. Dr. Kim nodded, her hands moving with practiced precision to adjust the anesthesia levels. It's going to take some time. Given the trauma of what she may have heard, we should have a psychiatrist standing by. As Diane was escorted from the surgical suite, She turned back one final time. "Emma," she called out desperately. "I did love you. I tried to love you the way a mother should." Her words carried across the room to where Emma lay motionless. But conscious minds can hear even when bodies cannot respond. The pain in Diane's voice was real, even if her actions had been unforgivable. Dr. Torres felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as she watched the woman who had tried to blackmail her being led away. Her own addiction would likely be exposed now, but she had chosen to save a life rather than protect her secret. "Thank you," Dr. Mason said quietly to Dr. Torres as they prepared to complete the surgery. "That took real courage." "I just hope she can forgive us all when she wakes up," Dr. Torres replied, looking at Emma's peaceful face with new understanding. 3 hours later, Emma's eyes fluttered open in the recovery room. The harsh fluorescent lights seemed different somehow, as if she was seeing the world through new eyes. Dr. Kim sat beside her bed, monitoring her vital signs and watching for any signs of distress. "Take it easy," Dr. Kim said gently as Emma tried to speak around the breathing tube that was being removed. "You're safe." The surgery went well. But Emma remembered everything. Every word of Diane's confession, every detail of the blackmail attempt, every moment of terror as she lay helpless while her murder was being planned. The memories crashed over her like waves, each one more devastating than the last. "I heard," she whispered, her voice hoarse from the intubation. "I heard everything she said." Dr. Kim's expression filled with compassion and concern. "I know. We've arranged for a counselor to speak with you, and the police will need to take a statement when you're ready." Detective James Morrison entered the room, his kind eyes and gentle demeanor immediately putting Emma at ease despite the circumstances. He had been working missing persons cases for 15 years and had seen the aftermath of family secrets before. "Miss," he said softly, "I know this is overwhelming, but we need to start the process of finding out who you really are. The woman who raised you has been arrested, and she's provided us with some details about where she found you 23 years ago." Emma's mind reeled with the implications. Somewhere out there she might have a real family who had been searching for her all these years. Parents who had never stopped wondering what happened to their little girl. "What do you remember from before you were 3? Detective Morrison asked gently. "Fragments," Emma replied, tears streaming down her face. "A woman singing to me in Spanish. A man who called me Estrelita. A yellow house with a garden." 6 weeks later, Emma stood nervously outside a modest house in a neighborhood she didn't recognize but somehow felt familiar. Detective Morrison had worked tirelessly to trace her origins, using the few clues from her recovered memories and DNA testing to identify her real family. The door opened and a woman in her 50s stepped out, her dark eyes immediately filling with tears. Behind her stood a man of similar age and 2 younger people, a woman in her 20s and a man in his late teens. "Tessa?" the older woman whispered, using a name Emma hadn't heard in 23 years but somehow recognized as her own. "Mama?" Emma replied tentatively, the Spanish word feeling natural on her tongue for the first time in decades. The reunion was explosive with emotion as her real family, the Hernandez family, embraced the daughter and sister they had never stopped searching for. Her parents, Maria and Carlos, had spent thousands of dollars on private investigators and had never given up hope that their 3-year-old daughter would come home. "We never stopped looking," her father said through tears. "Not for a single day." Her sister Carmen, now 25, and her brother Miguel, 19, had grown up knowing they had an older sister who had disappeared. They had dreamed of this moment but never quite believed it would happen. As Emma sat surrounded by her real family, sharing stories and trying to piece together the lost years, she felt a complex mixture of emotions. Joy at finding her true identity, anger at the woman who had stolen her childhood, and grief for the mother she thought she had known. Diane Parkinson had been sentenced to 15 years in prison for kidnapping and attempted murder. Dr. Torres had entered a rehabilitation program and was working to rebuild her career and her life. But Emma's story was just beginning. She had 23 years of lost time to recover, a new identity to embrace, and a family's love to rediscover. As she looked around at the faces of people who shared her features and her blood, she realized that sometimes the most devastating betrayals can lead to the most beautiful discoveries. The girl who had been stolen was finally home. Thanks for watching. Your support means more to us than words can express. We're so thankful to have you here. Tell us in the comment section what you think about this story.